At the collaboration meeting, I slammed the deal on the table. Matthew, we agreed that we'd take 80% of the profits. What exactly are you trying to do now? I fixed my gaze on Matthew, who sat across from me at the long table. The guy looked every bit the part, short hair neatly parted, suit sharp, nose high, eyes dark and deep. One strong arm rested on the table, his fingers casually playing with a sterling silver lighter. Things are different now, he said. The recent scandal with the board has had a bigger impact than you think. Since this is a partnership, it's supposed to be mutually beneficial. Any mistakes your company makes are naturally your responsibility. I tightened my jaw and stayed silent. Unlike them, our company is family-run. Every direct relative holds shares. That means if any shareholder acts up, as the current CEO, have to shoulder the blame and clean up their mess. Since my father's sudden death, no one knows how many calculations and schemes it took for me to reach this position. If this deal falls through, those old bastards might push me out again. Jackson knows my character, Matthew continued, locking eyes with me. I'll compromise this time, give you an extra 10% profit, but I need an answer within 3 days. He leaned forward, hands crossed on the table. Get out. I stayed seated. Matthew's male secretary behind him nodded, gathered his things, and left. My own secretary whispered, Jackson. I nodded, my Adam's apple moving. You go too. Yes. The door clicked shut. The tall man across from me lightly tapped his fingers on the table. Jackson, you know I don't give in easily. 50-50 is my bottom line. When I still didn't speak, he stood and moved to my side, placing his left hand over mine on the table. Matthew, you know my situation. I lowered my head, showing a rare flicker of vulnerability. His hand slid from my chest to my throat, exposing my flushed, fragile eyes completely. Desire burned in Matthew's gaze as he bent down and kissed me hard. The air seemed to ignite, the heat suffocating. After a long moment, he released me, voice husky, 6'4". Give me an answer in 3 days. My eyes glistened with a hint of tears. I looked at him, vulnerable, voice trembling slightly, 1 week. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. The new beta secretary walked beside me, voice full of awe. Jackson, Matthew's notorious for being impossible. Hardly anyone ever gets him to give up profit, and you just negotiated him down from 50-50 to 60-40. That's incredible. In the office mirror, I carefully pressed an Omega pheromone inhibitor patch over the full bite mark on the back of my neck. Did you gather all the materials I asked for? I asked. The secretary's eyes lit up. All done. Now, we just need to kick out those freeloading, bossy board members. After that, you won't have to deal with their nonsense anymore. I shot him a small, approving smile. Fresh out of college, he didn't have much experience yet, but he was passionate, still unjaded, not crushed by life. 2 words, loyalty. That alone was enough for me to pick him as my personal secretary. My phone buzzed. The secretary started to hand it to me, but I waved him off. Matthew, coming to my place tonight? I scoffed and typed back a single word. Jackson, okay. On the surface, Matthew and I could be described as nothing but arch-enemies. But behind closed doors, it was more complicated. He's the eldest son of a wealthy family, born with a silver spoon, only child, and a top-tier alpha destined to inherit billions. I, on the other hand, though from a good family, am an Omega. When my father was alive, he was domineering and decisive, grooming me as his heir. No one in the old mansion dared challenge him. After his sudden death, my mother and I were publicly targeted in the mansion. An Omega inheriting the company? That's ridiculous. Wouldn't that benefit outsiders? Jackson is handsome. Honestly, he should be married off to another family to bring more profit. Jackson, stop acting like an alpha running wild outside. Auntie can hire you a piano teacher, let you learn some culture at home, cultivate some manners. My mother, though my father was gone, was a formidable Omega herself. She swept the hot tea on the table onto the floor, shocking everyone. What? Since he's gone, you think you can bully my orphaned family now? I'll tell you, the shares are still in our hands. No one moves a finger in this company without me, the majority shareholder, speaking up. She grabbed my hand, striding out of the house with her head held high. Before leaving, she even ordered a secretary to splash red paint on the giant stone lions at the door. It nearly gave my biased step-grandmother a heart attack. Our whole family favored alphas over omegas. Growing up, that left me with a lasting dislike for alphas. 04. At Matthew's 20th birthday banquet, the family publicly announced that he would be officially entering the group. I had recently differentiated, so my sensitive nose made being in the crowd almost unbearable. In the garden, sunlight dappled the ground, and among the brilliant red roses, a tall alpha in a suit played the violin, bathed in golden sparkles. When our eyes met, I had to admit, the scene was breathtaking, unforgettable for years to come. Later, I learned that Matthew had been planning to confess to his childhood crush that night. But she never showed up, she was on a plane abroad. I locked the door with practiced ease, and the moment I stepped in, not yet adjusted to the darkness, the man pressed me against the door and kissed me with abandon. Matthew. His intensity was as if he could devour me whole. The ripped shirt felt like winter snow, but every touch burned like fire. No matter how we clashed in the daylight, at night we would both come to this room, without words, seeking simple pleasures. Because we were both broken in our own ways. He had skin hunger. If he went too long without touch, he became restless, unable to stay calm. I had just differentiated and been sabotaged on my way out. My car had stopped by the roadside, steam curling from the hood. The faint scent of strawberries lingered in the air. Jackson. His voice was low, cello deep, snapping my dazed mind awake. When he lifted me, I instinctively struggled. His palm brushed my waist, and I could vaguely feel his hand trembling. At the time, I was almost driven insane by the imbalance of pheromones. There was no choice. Matthew pressed his fangs to the back of my neck, marking me for the first time. When I woke up at the hospital, the doctor said I had a pheromone imbalance, requiring large doses of alpha pheromones for a long time. By coincidence, Matthew had come in and overheard. The two of us, caught up in the moment, had blindly rolled through several years together. 05. Now, I stared at my phone. Matthew, busy tonight. Let's reschedule. I froze. Matthew's skin hunger was serious. If we didn't meet for 2 days, he would get restless, his expression turning dark. It had been 3 days since our last collaboration, yet he suddenly changed the schedule. This was the first time in 4 years. A childhood friend called, voice dripping with excitement, Jackson, you won't believe who I saw at the mall. Matthew, who works 360 out of 365 days a year. And the worst part? He's out with some sweet little Omega girl. I almost couldn't watch. I froze, gripping the phone. Are you sure? The friend exaggerated, sure as hell. That sweet little Omega. I know her too, Matthew's so-called first love, Bella. She's the one who went abroad back then. I paused, memories of that garden scene flashing through my mind. For a moment, a pang of discomfort hit, but another call soon distracted me. Thomas's voice was lively, full of energy. Jackson, remember we agreed to go to the mall today to pick out gifts. Don't forget. I sighed. All right, won't forget. 06. In front of the luxury watch counter at the mall. Which one do you like, Jackson? Looking at Thomas's expectant eyes, I felt a twinge of jealousy. Thomas had grown up with me, he was my mom's close friend's son. He was the only alpha I had ever secretly liked during adolescence, though he had never known. Today, we were shopping not for him or me, but for his little boyfriend, an Omega. He figured I was also an Omega, so what I liked, his boyfriend would like too. You want my honest opinion? My dad always raised me like an alpha, I said lightly. Thomas hesitated, then finally chose 2 matching watches with the clerk's guidance, one on my wrist, one on his. Our pale and sun-kissed wrists side by side, Thomas nodded with sparkling eyes. This one's perfect. Let's go with it. Please wrap it up. Stung by someone else's happiness, I turned my head to look around, and froze. Matthew was there. Bella stood next to him, tall and gentle, smiling as she looped her arm through his. Matthew? What's wrong? She asked, tilting her head. Nothing, he said, yet his steps halted at the store entrance. I thought, her first love was back. Best not to interfere. I turned back to Thomas, whispering conspiratorially as before. I didn't notice Matthew's fists clench. Footsteps and heels clicked closer. I heard Bella ask from behind, was that your friend? Matthew's voice was icy, we've collaborated once or twice. I sneered inwardly. Swift and ruthless, as always, Matthew. That evening, after a shower, I poured a glass of red wine and sipped, slightly tipsy. Thinking of Matthew's words, I couldn't help muttering a few curses, my mind already calculating how to gain more in our next collaboration. The doorbell rang urgently. Who is it? In a rush to be born again. I opened the door, Matthew suddenly lifted me onto his shoulder. He strode a few steps, then dropped my slightly tipsy body onto the sofa. Something about him was off. Panicked, I kicked backward against the sofa, trying to create distance. A large hand clamped around my ankle, yanking me back in place. My sleepwear shifted with the movement, hem twisted and messy. A sharp scent of liquor filled the air, making my already dizzy head spin. The faint strawberry scent followed, growing stronger. 07. Matthew? You're drunk. I pushed against his shoulders, locking eyes with him, trying to bring him back to his senses. But there was no clarity left in his gaze, only a swirling, unrelenting hunger. Matthew's voice was husky, Jackson, we agreed. While we're maintaining this arrangement, no one else. I frowned. I remembered his words this afternoon in front of Bella, how he'd distanced himself from me, and a flash of anger ignited inside me. This audio is originally produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. Please credit when sharing. I released him in one motion. Surrounded by the heavy mix of strawberry and liquor in the room, my words came before my brain could catch up, don't worry. Until you've slept with Bella, nothing will happen between me and Thomas. At that, Matthew's eyes sharpened instantly, cutting through the haze of alcohol. You want to do what with him? He stood too tall, making me feel small, vulnerable. I got up from the sofa, straightening my disheveled clothes, tone laced with impatience, none of your business. Seeing his expression darken, I had a sudden idea. Pretending to be shocked, I stepped closer and traced a circle on his chest with my fingertip. Matthew, don't tell me that after sleeping together for years, you've suddenly developed feelings for me? Matthew's pupils contracted, and he grabbed my fingertips. My heart skipped a beat. Could I have hit the mark? But then he sneered coldly and tossed my hand aside. Jackson, do you find this amusing? I took a deep breath, walked to the door, and opened it wide. Remember our agreement? Both of us need to have time. I'm heading to the office tomorrow to deal with some parasites. I won't have time to entertain Matthew tonight. Matthew stared at me for a long moment, then strode out. Even after he left, his pheromones lingered in the room, the strawberry scent somehow stronger. I felt my own pheromones scrambling. The glands at the back of my neck burned, and my hand instinctively reached for my phone. But in the end, I resisted the urge to call him back. The way I depended on Matthew made me grip my phone tightly, breath quickening as I buried myself into the sofa, still soaked with his scent. My mind replayed his fierce kiss, the scorching heat, and his gentle side with Bella. Damn it. So frustrating. 08. As soon as I arrived at the office, my secretary, bright-eyed like a little puppy, ran up to me. Jackson, everyone's here. His voice was full of excitement. I smiled lightly and pushed open the conference room door. Most of the board members were distant relatives, 7 or 8 generations back, it seemed. I had no idea how my father ever tolerated them. Now, facing me, an Omega Jr., their expressions were stiff. Jackson's only been CEO for a few years, yet a junior has them waiting, one uncle muttered. I sat at the main seat, fingers tapping casually on the table. Then wait properly while you can. After all, opportunities like this might not come again. The uncle who had spoken banged the table, standing up with a shout, "How dare you talk like that?" Other relatives started chiming in. Exactly, Jackson. Even if your father is gone, you can't speak to your uncle that way. An Omega, and no manners at all. I smiled, slamming a stack of files onto the table. The large screen behind me projected documents, scrolling automatically. This company was built from nothing by my grandfather. The dividends you received were out of family courtesy. Even when my father cleaned house, he didn't over-explain. Now, if things aren't handled properly, the company might not survive another day. The secretary nodded, distributing files to everyone. Board members, here's the evidence, showing exactly what our family has been up to. Every action by my relatives, documented. The uncle frowned, slamming a folder down. Jackson, this is wrong. They're family. Family matters shouldn't be made public. I raised my hand. The secretary immediately froze the projection on the slide showing recent mismanagement impacting the company. Uncle, this subsidiary, you guaranteed that your cousin could handle it. Less than 3 months in, he tampers with the supply chain, misappropriates funds. This is serious. If you claim ignorance, do you think I'd believe you? Seeing the evidence, the uncle's face turned ashen. He fell silent. Others started to speak, but I laid out proof one by one. I'm not my father. Growing up, my mother and I endured our own challenges. Relatives don't bind me. If you don't want to leave gracefully, I can hand this over to the police. Jackson, you. That's not acceptable. How can you involve the police? I stayed silent until someone finally asked, Jackson, what exactly do you want? I smiled lightly, nothing much. Business is business, I just want to buy some shares at market price. For a moment, the room fell silent, each person hiding their thoughts. I sipped my coffee leisurely. You can all think about it. Secretary, make the call. Yes, Jackson. Seeing the secretary move, some relatives panicked and tried to stop him. Slow down. I'm short on cash and want quick profit. You can sell me a portion of the shares. Seeing Uncle understand, I smiled. No rush, Uncle. I'll have the contracts drawn up. How about this afternoon? He wiped sweat from his forehead, shaking his head. No rush. Victory felt complete. As I left, I couldn't help muttering, parents really do worry for their children. 09. Outside, the secretary looked worried. They're taken care of, but what about the supply chain? Finding a new one of this scale won't be easy. I didn't answer. Instead, I called Thomas. I heard you acquired some factories recently. Why not let me have them? Thomas's voice sounded tired, almost like he had been crying. Jackson, don't joke. They were prepared for you anyway. What's wrong? He choked up, heartbroken. I didn't process it until we hung up. The secretary, having listened, brightened and gave me a thumbs up. Jackson, you were already prepared for this. But, what about your cousin? I gave him a glance, a hint of a smile playing in my eyes, and said nothing. 10. As soon as I unlocked Thomas's door, the room hit me with the strong smell of alcohol. It immediately made me a little uneasy, and my mind flashed back to Matthew last night. You're here. Thomas downed a bottle of beer, slumping onto the carpet. On the coffee table sat the couple's watches we had picked out together. You drank all this? I asked, sitting beside him and opening a beer, taking a sip and frowning. It didn't taste as good as my wine. He doesn't want me anymore, we broke up. Thomas's eyes were red as he put on the heartbroken tough guy act. I patted his shoulder and spent half the night drinking with him. Eventually, he got drunk, face flushed, tongue loose, staring straight at me. His voice was heavy with disappointment. Jackson, if you had confessed to me back then, how different things would have been. I didn't reply. Thomas, his boyfriend Charlie, and I were all high school friends. But I'd grown up closest to Thomas. Both Charlie and I liked him. Back in senior year, I'd written Thomas a letter, but in my nervousness forgot to sign it. Thomas, being a fool, assumed it was from Charlie, and Charlie never corrected him. I took a sip of beer, half joking, how do you know I didn't confess? Thomas froze, as if he hadn't heard properly. Jackson? The back of my neck warmed from the alcohol, a subtle flush spreading across my face. I grabbed Thomas by the tie, pulling him closer. Want to try? Our lips hovered closer, the air thickening. He didn't flinch. Suddenly, Matthew's face popped into my mind. I stared at Thomas's lips, and stopped. If I kissed him now, with Matthew's temper, we'd be completely finished. The air carried a faintly sweet strawberry scent, mingling with a fresh citrus note. I chuckled and made my decision. I pinched Thomas's cheek and teased, no wonder breakups make you cry, a sense are so non-threatening. I moved to pull away, but Thomas, frowning, rolled over and pinned me beneath him. What? Angry? His eyes were red, voice slightly husky. Looking down at me, serious, he said, Jackson, let's really be together. Ha! Before I could respond, his lips pressed down on mine. But just a second before the kiss, the door burst open with a bang. 11. Thomas and I looked up simultaneously. Matthew stormed in, face burning with anger, followed by his secretary and a locksmith. He saw us tangled together and a flare of fire ignited in his eyes. Matthew grabbed my wrist, yanking me out from under Thomas. Our eyes met, his presence pressed down like a storm ready to break. Jackson, sneaking around behind me? I blinked, taken aback, frowning at his words. Matthew's lips were tight, the chill around him sharp. Thomas, startled, sobered up immediately. Jackson, you too. Seeing the clarity in Matthew's eyes, I quickly grabbed his wrist and hurriedly stepped outside. Rest. I'll explain tomorrow. 12. Inside Matthew's car, I rubbed my forehead, frustrated. Matthew, what the hell is going on? His voice was icy. Why is it okay to explain to him? Ha! Matthew gripped my wrist, staring into my eyes. Why not explain it to me? My lips parted then closed. I was completely dumbfounded. Matthew, had he lost his mind? What even is our relationship? Why should I explain myself to him? He didn't explain what he did with Bella either. Thinking of Bella, this whole situation seemed ridiculous, like a husband catching his wife cheating. Do you really want to know? Matthew didn't answer but didn't look away either. I like Thomas. I've liked him since high school. That's why I don't want him to misunderstand our relationship. It was the truth. But now, things were different. You're listening to Omegaverse Tales Studio, a YouTube channel dedicated to captivating short stories. Let's continue. In Matthew's cold, sharp eyes, a dangerous glint appeared as I admitted my feelings. I twisted my wrist slightly, unable to pull away, feeling helpless. And, now that Bella's back, it's better if we end things. So no one ends up hurt. You two were wearing couples' watches. I was waiting for the next words, blinking. Matthew pulled out a lighter, fingers trembling as he lit a cigarette. The car window was open, and the glow of the flame cast his sharp, handsome profile into sharp relief, just as breathtaking as when I first saw him in the garden. We stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, he asked, "What if I said I don't like Bella?" My heart jumped. I chuckled lightly, "Who you like is your freedom." Matthew flicked the ash out the window, rolling it up, sealing the car tight. My animal instincts screamed, something was off. I reached for the car door, and heard the lock click. The car was completely sealed. Matthew, I turned to glare at him. He, however, smiled at me, eyes red at the corners, bright and mischievous. I froze. Then the heavy scent of alcohol hit me, filling the enclosed space. The alcohol intensified the strawberry pheromones, stronger than the citrus now. Earlier, the strawberry was subtle, but mixed with the liquor, it surged uncontrollably. Matthew's voice, deep and cello-like, came with a teasing laugh. Jackson, didn't your Omega teacher teach you? Pheromones don't lie. 13. I'll let go. I reached out to push him away, but the pheromone chaos left me suddenly powerless. The car seat reclined, and I fell across it, limbs sprawled, too weak to do anything but crawl. The tall man pressed down on me from behind. Matthew, you. A deep, sexy voice whispered in my ear. I want to touch you, he said. Though I knew his body well, today it somehow felt alarming. The instant he grabbed me, his teeth sank into the gland at the back of my neck. The sharp, tingling pain was mixed with a dizzying pleasure, leaving my mind completely blank. Ugh! I don't know how much time passed before Matthew finally held me limply in his arms, my face streaked with tears from losing control moments earlier. Before the car started moving, I vaguely heard him whisper in my ear, "Don't like anyone else." Later that night, I woke up needing to pee. After getting back into bed, just as I was about to sleep, I remembered his words. I shot upright and shouted, "No, Matthew must be sick." I was furious. Who does he think he is, worrying about who I like? Crazy. I rubbed my sore waist and muttered more, when suddenly the bedside lamp flicked on. Enough complaining. I jumped, just about to roll away, when a strong hand grabbed my waist. Matthew's face was sleepy but fierce. His teeth clenched as he said, "I was worried you'd be tired, looks like you're still full of energy, Jackson." Ha! I struggled to get off the bed, but he pinned me down. My lips were bitten, my shirt tugged up. His fingers started wandering inappropriately. Under the glow of the bedside lamp, the intoxicating mix of alcohol and strawberry pheromones swirled again. 14. I pinched my brow, feeling dizzy. The pheromone chaos triggered a heat cycle. For days, I'd been at Matthew's mercy as he wreaked havoc at home. If not for 2 important business deals, I had no idea when he would have let me go. After a meeting, Thomas pushed open the office door. "Looking for me?" Thomas nodded, serious. "You and Matthew." I shifted uncomfortably. "I told you, when I was newly differentiated, I was sabotaged. My body got messed up, pheromones out of whack. Matthew helped me back then. He also needed a suitable Omega, and we just made do with each other." Thomas studied me intently, thinking. Then he pulled a gift box from his coat and pushed it toward me. "Jackson, these are the couple watches we picked together. I didn't give them to Charlie. If you need an alpha, I can." I frowned and interrupted him, pushing the watches back toward him. "I need an alpha to stabilize my pheromones, not someone to pity me or tolerate me." I looked him in the eye. "If I'm not the first choice, I'd rather just have a purely physical relationship." Thomas got a little flustered, grabbing my hand. "Jackson, that's not what I meant. Matthew, he has Bella, everyone knows that. You'd get hurt." I withdrew my hand, eyes sliding past him to Matthew behind. "So, you two, I don't want either of you." 15. Thomas looked at Matthew, our eyes meeting, sparks almost visible. Eventually, he gave up, his expression forlorn as he took the couple's watches and left. I stood behind the desk, watching his retreating back. I couldn't help but feel a little victorious. Thomas and I grew up together. Both Charlie and I liked him. I didn't believe Matthew, sensitive as he was, wouldn't notice even a subtle reaction. Even if he were slow to react, Could he really not recognize my handwriting versus Charlie's? I didn't think so. Get out. Matthew ignored my words, placing a lunchbox on the desk. Inside were simple, aromatic home-cooked dishes. I crossed my arms, scoffing. Matthew comes to be nice, and doesn't even bring abalone or lobster? How underwhelming. Abalone and lobster can be bought with money. But a meal cooked by the lady of the house? That can't be bought, he said. Ha! His mother. He handed me chopsticks, try it. For some reason, sitting down, I felt a pang of regret. The home-cooked food was mild, simple, yet carried a feeling of home I hadn't tasted from restaurants. My mother, once a young lady, hadn't cooked since marrying my dad. If she ever did, it was a rare treat for us. I couldn't help but chuckle. The lady cooks very well. Matthew's expression didn't change, but a warm glow appeared in his eyes at the compliment. 16. When my mother heard I'd dealt with the company's parasites, she rushed back from abroad, fuming, determined to vent her anger. Clacking high heels, she strode ahead. How dare they tamper with raw materials and not tell me? If I knew, I'd have had them all thrown in jail. I followed behind with my luggage, feeling a warmth in my chest. I left gaps on purpose 6 months ago, to catch them all in one sweep. And I'm old enough now, I can't call mom every time something happens. How embarrassing would that be? She tapped my forehead with a manicured finger. You're still not making me worry too much. At the airport, before the secretary arrived, a Maserati pulled up. I froze. Matthew got out, and before I could react, he swiftly loaded the luggage into the trunk. My mother looked at his tall, strong figure and nodded in approval. This new secretary of yours is great. Much better than the skinny one before. I smiled wryly. Then my mother asked, you mentioned that Matthew tricked him out of 10% of shares? I froze, our eyes meeting in the rearview mirror. Matthew coolly added, yes. Jackson even used a beauty trap. My mother was shocked. What? A beauty trap? On whom? That Matthew boy? Along the way, I had to explain little by little. Every time, Matthew mischievously interrupted. At home, I persuaded my mother inside. As soon as she was gone, I couldn't help but shout, Matthew. Instead of getting angry, he grabbed the back of my neck as he passed with the luggage, biting my lips hard. I retaliated with a kick to his calf. 17. After my mom came back, Matthew, for some reason, started sending red roses to my house every single day for a week. Mom teased me, wow, I wonder which lucky guy has such good taste. I was furious and ordered a truckload of rose petals to be dumped at Matthew's company entrance. I sent him a message, scowling, go dump this at your company gate. Matthew replied, Do it, or else. I snapped. Do I really need to humiliate this alpha publicly to teach him a lesson? 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Matthew's voice came through, teasing, so Jackson really fancies me, huh? What nonsense are you talking about? His voice was sexy enough to make my ears tingle. I like it. Like it? Like what? Moments later, on multiple short video platforms, videos suddenly went viral, a tall, handsome alpha getting showered in rose petals, looking oddly romantic. 18. After cursing Matthew a few times, I didn't think much of it, until that evening, when it blew up online. Bella had a short video account where she occasionally live-streamed her luxurious life. During her livestream, the floor behind her was covered in rose petals. Creative netizens immediately linked it to the rose petal prank from earlier. Bella didn't respond, but her best friend, also on the live stream, leaned into the camera and said, why hide it? Just tell us. Her comment fueled curiosity even more. She continued, theatrically, you don't know, but Matthew once confessed to Bella. At the time, she was going abroad, so he didn't succeed. He was devastated. Now Bella's back, both older, and by the parents' plans, a marriage could be soon, right? Bella playfully pushed her friend. Not that soon. His company keeps him busy. Viewers were convinced, flooding the chat with blessings. Bella's delicate features and flushed cheeks made the situation go viral. 19. I had barely woken up, sitting on the bed with Mom beside me. She excitedly read every comment aloud. Was that Matthew driving last time? Why didn't you say anything? My son really has great taste. This one's right, no one deserves my son. But, what's with Matthew? Bullying my son while chasing an ex, and still thinking he's in charge? I rubbed my throbbing forehead. Just as I wanted to call my secretary to see what had happened, Mom suddenly jumped up, screamed, and shook my arm. See? No one can resist my son. On the phone screen in front of me, Matthew's verified account had a new post. Jackson and I never dated. The roses weren't a confession, they were a playful response to being pursued. As for Bella, yes, there's a potential arranged marriage, but that involves my cousin, not me. Cold, precise words, so different from the earlier tone. Bella's image took a hit online, and the marriage plan with Matthew's cousin was immediately rejected. Both families weren't that powerful, so the wedding collapse stirred chaos. 20. This story is exclusively produced by the YouTube channel, Omegaverse Tales Studio. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Finally escaping Mom's questioning, I entered the office and nearly blinded myself on a sea of red roses. I pinched my forehead, teeth gritted, glaring at Matthew. What exactly are you doing? He calmly pulled me over, pressing me into a chair. A confession. Haven't you been hinting? I froze. What hinting? He knelt, one knee on the floor, and pulled a gift box from his pocket. Inside was a custom, exquisite watch. If I'm not the first choice, I'd rather just have a physical relationship. My eyes widened, it was exactly what I'd said to Thomas in the office. He lifted my wrist, placing the watch on me. Matthew's gaze was bright, sparkling like stars. Now, you're my first choice. The watch didn't weigh my wrist, but I felt trapped. Matthew's jokes aren't funny. I tried to pull my hand back, but he held it tight. Jackson, can't you see I'm chasing you? The scent of alcohol in the room was almost intoxicating. My heart raced, drums pounding in my chest. I tried to stay composed, but the strawberry pheromones were overpowering. My face flushed instantly, and I kicked Matthew hard. Annoying. His hand gripped my ankle, hot and unyielding. He tilted his head, kissing my lips. In the shared breath, his hand crawled up my ankle like a vine. When he reached my knee, blocked by my pants, he finally released me, his eyes red and voice hoarse. Jackson. I want to hold you. 21. That day, the trending headline read. Workaholic Matthew carries off our Jackson in broad daylight. Meanwhile, I trembled, wildly pounding on Matthew's shoulders. Get off! My voice shook, almost breaking into tears as I yelled. He refused to let go of my ankle. Sweat dripped down my waist, soaking into the sheets. You promised you'd. Even Matthew, usually calm and composed, looked slightly flustered, confused. I watched the tutorial fully. And then, he pressed me even harder. My waist went weak, and I was flipped over. Matthew, let's break up, right now. Matthew behind me didn't respond. I turned to see his eyes glowing red. With one firm move, his teeth clamped on the gland at the back of my neck. For the first time, alcohol and strawberry pheromones fused completely.